We are on episode 23. We just talked about some of the items we missed during Roger's presentation review, but there was one that we missed from your time at Cal Dutch or Larson Group.
This was when Cal Dutch was selling out to Larson. We hadn't consummated the deal, but we were to the point where we knew what was going to happen. At least the president of the Larson Company and myself did, so two of us. We had 3 plants. I told you that Cal Dutch packed good quality product at as low a cost as possible and grew real slowly with picking up additional customers and buying additional equipment and so forth. But when we started negotiating with Larson Company, you know the story, my boss was going to retire, and we got involved with Larson Company, and they were looking for a production man. And we were close to the point of consummating the deal. And I said to the president of the Larson Company, I said, we're going to want to increase the production if we get involved with Larson. And we are hemmed in with property at the Cedar plant. But I think I could buy the lumber yard, which was a small lumber yard that had a nice office and kind of dilapidated sheds for protecting the lumber from the weather, but didn't have much value. I said, I think we could buy that before the word gets out that we're selling out to Larson Company, because I figured the price of that land would more than double if they knew that. He said, go ahead. So here, we didn't have a deal signed yet. I don't know whose money I was spending at the time. And I went and I bought the lumber yard, and I think paid $25,000 for it, which wasn't very much. And we were abutting the foundry in town and the lumber yard had a nice office. Well, we made the deal, bought the lumber company, turned the office of the lumber company into the village library, sold part of the property to the foundry. This was after the deal was announced. So now we had property on that side. Now we needed additional land for waste disposal, because if you increase your production, you got more waste. So I bought a piece of property from Herb Tempest and from Mrs. Meerdink, and on which we built our lagoons. And I don't think I bought all of those. And we bought the tile factory, which abutted us on the north side of our plant. So we had 4 pieces of property that we bought either before or right after we became part of Larson Company. And that really made the Larson Company Cedar Grove plant viable, because we had room to expand. We put another continuous cooker in and so on and so forth. And then, of course, with waste disposal, I said food wastes are very high in biochemical oxygen demand. They have dissolved solids, and if you don't supply enough oxygen, you can have anaerobic conditions which make for a bad smell. My wife would complain about the smell from the pea vine stack, which was a mile from our house, and I said, smells like money to me. But so now we had to put a treatment system in, and subsequent to that, I became a member of the village board, and they needed a new treatment system. So I thought, if we can design a system of lagoons with aerators. I went to a school in New York where they taught us to use big paddles. They floated on 3 big floats, and there were at least 100 horsepower each. And the big paddles, we had to get separate power brought into the field, and those paddles would go around 24 hours a day and stir up that water, and that oxygenated the waste, and it worked pretty good. And then we had it set up that when our wastes were at a certain level, we could discharge it into the city system and be home free as far as waste shipment is concerned. So that turned out pretty good. But I remember we had 3 or 4 of those big paddles that would be running, make a fair noise, but they're out in the countryside, and that's how we treated our waste.
Are they still doing it today?
No, there's no plant there anymore. See,
they closed the
that's
plant.
another story. When I don't know if I got into that when the treasurer at Dean Foods. Did we get into any of that or not?
No.
Well, I retired in 1993. And I think I told you I had to retire. That was the policy of the Dean Foods. And at that time, I brought Jeff Shaw from California, talked his wife into coming to Wisconsin. That's a sales pitch when you can sell someone in the fact that Wisconsin is a better place to live than California. It is for other reasons now. But he came there, and then we did well. We had Division of the Year award twice with Dean Foods. We should have had it the third time, but Howard Dean said we never gave it 3 years in a row. I said, that doesn't mean you can't start because our figures justify it. So I was president from 1985 until 93, and we had Division of the Year award 3 years or 2 years, and I should have been third year. So
With the Cal Dutch plant, then, how did that lead to the closing of that plant?
well, we folded the Cal Dutch plants in. We rebuilt all of them.
I mean, the Cedar Grove plant, I'm sorry.
We rebuilt Cedar Grove, Waldo, and Brilliant. We put concrete buildings up, precast concrete, and we did that almost immediately. The engineering department took care of that part of it. Took care of the production. We framed it out with the engineering. So this is what we need, so they took care of buying it. Now, the treasurer of Dean Foods, Bill Fisher, I was working closely with him because he was the finance guy. If I said we should take a look at this plant, get on an airplane and take a look at it, and he would do the numbers deal, and we'd end up buying the plant. Well, then he retired, and somebody else came in, and the new treasurer decided that there wasn't enough return on investment in vegetables. Whereas milk, you buy milk, sell it the same day. Vegetables, you pack one pack a year, hold it in your warehouse, so you don't have the return on investment that you do with the milk. So he decided that they should divest himself of the vegetable division. So Jeff, my guy that took over from me, was very active in the sale of that. I wasn't there anymore. They sold it. It must have been in the early 2000s, like less than 2010, maybe 2005 or 6. So they sold it to AgriLink, and AgriLink was a co-op in New York. Co-ops tend to want to produce a lot. They aren't too worried about sales. The farmers would make money by production, and they thought they could convert the sales of their plants, AgriLinks, that were being sold on a private label basis, to brand it, the Fresh Like and Veg All. But they really weren't familiar with how to handle the sales of a branded merchandise, whereas Larson Company was basically a branded merchandise company. So then, what did they do? Their sales didn't increase, so then they would cut the production down of the Dean Food vegetable plants in order to protect the production of the co-op plants. Follow me? In New York. And one by one, the plants were sold, the labels were sold, the Fresh Like label was sold, and it was kind of sad as far as I was concerned, because every year I was involved with the vegetable business, we made money. Some of it we made by squeezing $100,000 out of me. But
Yeah, that's our plant in New Zealand.
yeah.
So, that kind of brings us up to modern times. And I know there was one, we spent a lot of time talking about Europe, but I think there was one country that you left out of that story. Is that right?
Oh, yeah. So on one trip, and this was shortly after I started going with Linda. I think I told you how I met her.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I decided I was in love with her. She was a nice gal, and she felt the same about me. And shortly after I left her or met her, I was scheduled to take a 4-week trip to Europe. So I was going to be in Warsaw or Włocławek for 1 week, and then I was stopped at Zlin, Czech Republic for a week. Then I went to Bulgaria for a week, and then I went to Ukraine because they called me when I was in Bulgaria and asked if I'd take a side trip to Ukraine. So I was gone for a month, but I stopped in Zlin, Czech Republic. I got on a train in Warsaw, and I didn't know where I was going, but they said, just get off the train in Zlin. They didn't tell me there was 4 stations. Fortunately, I got off on the first station, and there was Hedvika Satava and her husband and her 2 daughters, and they met me, and they said, we're going to take a little pleasure trip to see some castles this afternoon. You want to go along? Well, I had nothing else to do, so I went along and had a nice time. And they brought me to, I think they brought me to a hotel on a hill. I didn't know the name hotel. And I went downtown and I saw a tour bus. They had left me. I was going to see them on Monday morning. I saw a tour bus. I said, "You have room for me?" Sure. So I got in this tour bus, and we saw the St. Charles Bridge and some churches. And well, then he was done with the tour, and he left all the people off the bus. He said, "Where are you going?" I said, "Well, I really don't know the name of the hotel, but it's on a high hill." He said, "I think I know where it is." So he took me to this hotel. It happened to be the right one. Then I went to a restaurant, nothing in English, so I just pointed at something. I think I had some sirloin tips mixed with French fries and red peppers. Tastes pretty good. But imagine that all by myself. And then I left there, and then I went to Bulgaria, and then I went to Ukraine. I just critiqued Hedvika Satava's business. Nothing really developed. I mean, we didn't can any corn or anything there. So,
But you got to know the farmers, is that right?
yes, oh yes, that was the interesting part of it. They had these communal farms. I think they're communal farms where they would have a supervisor, and they would have serfs or workers on these small plots of land, and they would harvest grain and whatever. And at night, they didn't have much to do, but they all had their own wineries underground in near one of their fields. And I remember pipetting wine out of their kegs and ending up singing Czech songs. They sounded pretty good after a while. But it was interesting. I know they gave me a bottle of peach brandy that they had made, which decided to break somewhere between Europe and the United States. So I had clothes soaked in peach brandy. I didn't have any peach brandy yet. But anyhow, that pretty well takes care of my European deal. And like I said before, most of the people that I work with came to the United States. I took Alex to our retired men's group one morning, and he got up there and started talking, and I was just introducing him. I didn't have him lined up as a speaker, and I went like this. He said, "I think Roger wants me to stop talking." So he stopped talking. But it was nice to bring those people over here.